In the spring of 1927, DY's Theater on 63rd Street was suddenly raided by police like a storm. Mae West, along with the cast and crew, was arrested on charges of indecency and corrupting the morals of youth. A police officer whispered heavily, "You know the law. Mae, you'll have to pay for those revealing outfits and sensitive lines." Mae held her head high, a smile both sarcastic and proud, flashing, "If my body is the price to make people notice, then I'm willing to pay." And when leaving prison before the waiting reporters' cameras, Mae was not only confident, but defiant. "They think they can extinguish me, but they only make me shine brighter. Wait and see. I'll be even bolder." The glittering golden age of Hollywood was not just radiant like an inner paradise, but behind those blinding lights lay countless shadowy arrests and tragedies buried for decades. There were actresses jailed just for a too bold scene, male stars facing horrifying accusations that turned their careers to ashes, and there were those who, despite carrying heavy scandals, continued living calmly like immortal monuments. Today we peel back the curtain covering the dark side of classic Hollywood, where 20 stars once strayed before the law, swept into whirlwinds of scandal addiction, and forever unable to return to their former glory. Who walked through prison doors and who among them casually became legends? Number 6 will surely surprise you. Unknown Al Pacino, illegal possession of a firearm. In the reckless years of his youth during the winter of 1961, Pacino was stopped by police in Rhode Island. In his car trunk, they found a loaded gun gloves and a black mask. A scene that would make anyone think of crime rather than art. With no $2,000 bail money, Pacino was held in a freezing jail cell for 3 days, where the gray walls seemed ready to swallow the youth of a young man just stepping into life. Yet, the truth was far less dramatic than appearances suggested. The gun police later discovered was merely a prop for a performance. Pacino and 2 friends were on their way to an audition, and the shock and fear in their eyes as they were handcuffed said it all. When everything was clarified, the charges were dropped. But those 3 days in jail left a quiet scar on Pacino's memory, a reminder that life can slip into darkness over a single moment of misunderstanding. Aside from this incident, Pacino's life recorded no serious criminal offenses. His real-life tragedy lay in financial failures, betrayals by managers, and the collapse of trust, which eventually led him to bankruptcy in his later years. Once standing at the peak of fame with over $50 million in his account, he later admitted to being almost broke. The tragedy began quietly like a small crack. Pacino spent lavishly, maintained a large staff owned numerous unused properties, and paid hundreds of thousands of dollars annually to keep things he never used. He lived in such a swirl of extravagance that he no longer knew where his money went. Even the checks in his name weren't signed by him. Then came the day the truth was revealed. His most trusted accountant had been running a Ponzi scheme embezzling his money for years and was eventually sentenced to prison. The loss wasn't just financial. It was a portion of Pacino's life manipulated by another. 2. Paul McCartney, the idol arrested in Japan for possessing banned substances. On January 16, 1980, Paul McCartney, former Beatle Wings leader and living rock legend, stepped off the plane at Narita Airport in Tokyo for a promised 11-city tour. But as soon as his suitcase was checked, Japanese police discovered 219 grams of banned substance, about half a pound, hidden inside. McCartney admitted, "We were about to fly to Japan, and I knew I wouldn't find this there. So I brought it." This statement froze the entire airport, as in Japan. Drug laws were strict enough to impose up to 7 years of hard labor. He was immediately taken to the Tokyo Drug Detention Center. Prisoner number 22. In the following days, McCartney lived like a real inmate, waking early, making his bed, eating by regulation, facing continuous interrogations. The tension and helplessness made the musician who once conquered the world clearly feel the weight of law in the land of the rising sun. Every footstep in the prison corridor echoed as a reminder no one, not even an international legend, stands above the law. Ultimately, after 9 days of detention, McCartney was not tried but released and deported from Japan. The tour was canceled. Hundreds of millions of yen in sold tickets collapsed, and his name instantly flooded global headlines. From a worship star, McCartney became a cautionary image for foolish mistakes before foreign laws. Though not imprisoned long-term, the incident left a major scar on his reputation. He later admitted that was the stupidest thing I ever did. The event turned a global music icon into a figure in a worldwide cautionary tale where spotlight and fame aren't enough to shield from the power of law. It reminds us that even living legends sometimes pay dearly for their own moments of error. And here the next name after a free fall. No one could believe proof that Hollywood doesn't just create legends, but also unforgivable tragedies. 3. Mae West, a play too sensitive and dark. In 1927, Broadway shook when Mae West, the actress with seductive allure and trademark husky voice, released the play Sex, the story of Margie Lamont, a prostitute, enraged New York's rigid censors. Just months after the play debuted, police suddenly raided Daly's 63rd Street Theater, arresting Mae West along with the cast and crew on charges of indecency and corrupting youth morals. The news exploded in the press, turning the young star into the center of an unprecedented scandal. She was sentenced to 10 days in jail and a $500 fine, but in reality served about 8 days at the Welfare Island detention camp. Instead of bowing to the punishment, Mae turned her prison time into a public performance, dining with the warden, chatting with inmates, and maintaining confident demeanor, captivating the press and leaving the public both fearful and admiring. Those days in prison became a catalyst that spread her rebellious sex queen image farther than ever. This arrest was not just a personal tragedy, but a heavy blow to artistic censorship of the era. After release, Mae West turned the depravity accusation into a springboard to Hollywood's peak signing with major studios and building a legendary image remembered by every generation of audiences. A figure who shocked all of Hollywood with the harshest sentence. Who could it be? Keep going. 4. Tom Neal, the wife killer. Tom Neal was once a bright face of Hollywood, an actor whose smile made audiences believe in miracles and whose eyes held nameless dark depths. Behind the dazzling lights were cracks following him like ghosts. A life full of anger, disappointment, slamming doors, and love twisted into screams. Gail Bennett entered his life when his career had faded, bringing youthful gentleness, unwittingly becoming the last light keeping him from the abyss. But sometimes what holds you back is what makes you sink faster. One accustomed to living in the spotlight, one craving peace. In the early months, love hid the differences. But then Tom's groundless outbursts, Gail's silent fears interrupted conversations. All became seeds of tragedy. Gail wanted a simple life. Tom dragged his dark past into every meal every evening. They loved each other, but love wasn't enough to save a sinking soul. Gail's friends said there were days she appeared with red eyes, but forced a smile as if everything was fine. No one knew exactly what happened behind those doors, only that whenever Tom was mentioned, her voice lightened, but her eyes filled with exhaustion. Tom, conversely, he didn't mention his wife, but his silence was the loudest confession that something very dark was brewing inside like a storm coiling day by day. In early 1965, they separated. No shouting, no smashing, just a terrifying silence of two people too far apart to touch again. Gail moved out trying to rebuild her life. Tom stayed in the empty house where her laughter once echoed, now surrounded only by shadows. Acquaintances said he became dazed, as if Gail had taken the last piece of peace he clung to. No one knew why Gail returned to the house that afternoon. Perhaps to end with a word, perhaps to return something left behind, or just to close the final door of a desperate marriage. But all reasons now vanished before one truth: she never walked out of that house again. What happened between them? The final conversation, broken voices, last glances, all remain in the darkness. No one can touch. A bang, short, dry, cold. When police arrived, Gail lay motionless on the sofa. A .45 bullet lodged behind her ear. Tom stood there trembling, saying it was all an accident. But his eyes told another story. Panic, confusion, despair, as if he knew fate had long decided the ending for both. Tom claimed they argued that Gail held the gun, and when he tried to wrest it, it went off. But the bullet's path, body position, firing distance, nothing truly matched. Public opinion shuddered accident or the result of rages he hid for years. The question lingered sharp and cold as the white wall where Gail's body was found. The 1965 trial became Hollywood's focal point. Prosecutors reconstructed the story with what remained ballistics' marital conflicts, his history of violence. Defense lawyers tried to save him with arguments of love. A tragic accident between two who could no longer hold each other. Tom sat silently, eyes empty, as if drained of all emotion, unsure whether to cry or breathe. The jury convicted Tom Neal of involuntary manslaughter, a verdict standing on the line between mistake and accident. He received 1 to 15 years, but served only 6. People say the rest of his life, lonely days bad.